speak the truth. When you think you're dying, it's fine to get the knees. And practice in your brains, you do it all again, but you don't stop trying.
We demand to be equal! Hold up those torn equal cards, let everybody see them. This is what the government wants to do to trans people. Not acceptable. We will be equal in our state, we will be equal in the eyes of the law, and we will be equal citizens together. Make some noise! Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Daniel, and I salute your bravery, and I also salute Belong To and Individuality for helping empower young people like you to step into the public spotlight and make the address that you just made. So next up I'd like to invite Cearbhall from Noise, who's going to speak about non-binary identities and intersex people.
Hi everybody. Everyone good? I just want to echo what Daniel was saying there about the marriage equality referendum. If this forced divorce aspect of the bill is kept in place, it's really important that you're going out there campaigning for the equal marriage referendum, not just for all the reasons that have kind of already been discussed, but trans people haven't been mentioned in that debate much so far, and if the government do insist on this very flawed piece of legislation, it'll be all the more important that that referendum passes, not just so that same-sex couples can get married, but that existing couples don't have to divorce. And that needs to be part of the debate, and I think people need to go out and campaign for that. To remember, it's not just about people getting married. Don't let people get divorced either, have to get divorced. I was wondering what I was going to say today about non-binary and intersex people in the bill, and it's something that hasn't been part of the debate much. It's something that Noise really wanted to highlight because not many people have talked about it, and I found it very difficult to think of what I was going to say, but then I was very lucky because I got a letter in the post. I asked one of my local TDs to get onto Joan Burton and put some of my criticisms about the bill to her, and I finally got a letter back after only 3 months, where she said that finally Mr. Turraoin is correct in noting that the bill does not seek to address the situation of non-binary people, i.e. people with gender identities that do not fit within the accepted binary of male and female. The bill has been developed to respond in particular to the needs of the transgender community. Now, the second part of that sentence is kind of a non sequitur to the first one to start with, but it's also completely false. What she's kind of implying is that non-binary recognition isn't a need that people have, that no one's clamouring for non-binary recognition. I had a meeting with Kevin Humphreys the other week, and I was talking to him about this, and he kind of said, well, you know, no one's ever, I've never met anyone who was looking for that. That's not something that anyone's ever said to me. I've never met someone who has said that non-binary recognition is important to them. I told him, you're looking at one right now, which he kind of didn't have an answer for. But if you're trying to sum up this bill, and it's very, very difficult, we've had lots of very long discussions about why is the government doing this thing, or why is the government doing that, why did they choose that part of the legislation, or why did they pick this person's advice rather than someone else's? And you can kind of go back and forth for hours about, is it this politician or that politician, this member of cabinet, is it because they're conservative or whatever? And I think really, quite sadly, it kind of boils down to apathy. It would be one thing if you could say, there's a conservative ideology there, or someone has an opposing argument, then we could engage with that argument. We could have that discussion and see who's got the best argument, who's got the best facts, who's got the best logic on their side. But when it's because Joan Burton doesn't care, that's kind of a brick wall. And I've had so many meetings with politicians where it feels like I'm headbutting stone and you're getting absolutely nowhere. And in one particular meeting I had with Kevin Humphreys, I brought up intersex issues and non-binary people, and it was as if the thought had never occurred to them. There was so little time and effort being invested in this piece of legislation that they didn't have an argument as to why they hadn't included non-binary people in the bill, because they hadn't thought to include non-binary people in the bill. They'd spent about 5 minutes on Google looking up trans issues and then slapped a bill together by basically just originally photocopying the English legislation, which is a decade old, and then deciding that would do. And the same thing is true with intersex people. I mean, I'm not an expert on intersex issues. So far as I'm aware, and I've never had my chromosomes mapped, so I don't know this for definite, but as far as I'm aware, I'm not intersex. And I've read a bit on the internet about intersex issues, but I'm far from an expert. And neither is anyone in the Department of Social Protection. They have no idea whether this bill is going to work for intersex people or not, and they haven't asked anyone. They have been told time and again by advocates and activists on trans issues. We've asked them time and again, go to the UK, go to Scotland, go to New Zealand, go to Australia, go to countries where there are experts on intersex issues and ask them, this is the bill we've written, will it suit intersex people? But the entire bill has been written from the point of view of trans people. All the language in it reflects the experiences of trans people. Words like transition that may not necessarily apply to intersex people. So they just quickly wrote a bill and then said, ah yes, that'll do for intersex people as well. It's the theme throughout the bill is this isn't worth our time and effort. So we're going to leave it to the civil servants. None of the politicians are going to get involved. We'll just get civil servants to draft the legislation, and that'll be grand. Because we're really working for, really looking forward to the marriage equality referendum, and that's going to make us look like we're good LGBT allies, and that's going to make us look like good people who aren't bigots. So that's fine. We don't have to do anything else for LGBT people. They think that's the big headline issue, and that this one isn't going to get much press, it's not going to get many votes, it's not worth the time and effort. So thank you all so much for coming out here today and showing that there are people who care about this issue, that there are votes in this, and that work needs to be done. And I just want to say in particular, there have been many senators who have put down excellent amendments on the bill from all sides of the House. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, Sinn Féin, Independents, everyone, apart from Kevin Humphreys and Joan Burton, are saying that this bill needs to be changed and that amendments need to be made. So this isn't an opposition government thing, this isn't one party against another. This is the trans community and their allies, all of you, saying this issue actually does matter to us, it matters to our friends, to our families, to our wives, to our children, and that you need to do a better job. You need to put the time and effort in and listen to trans people. And I just want to leave you with one last thought. It was actually something that Vicky said a few weeks ago, that this thing in the letter about the bill has been written with the interests of trans people in mind and their needs in mind. We all know how few women are in the Dáil, how bad the gender balance is in both the Dáil and the Seanad. But imagine for a minute if every TD and every senator was male, and there was a bill going through on women's rights. And because no members of the Dáil or Seanad were women, no women could get up and speak about the bill and speak about how it would affect them. And then imagine that you have all these women's rights groups clamouring to get meetings with the government, telling them this is what needs to happen, these are the problems with the bill, this is what you have to change. And the government said, yes, we've considered your advice, but we've decided to ignore it. How would Joan Burton feel about that? How would Ivana Bacik feel about that? Would they be content with that situation? Because I'm not content, not one bit. Thanks.
Sometimes I feel like throw my hands up in the air. I know I can count on you. Sometimes I feel like saying, Lord, I just don't care. But you've got the love I need to see me through.